Okay, so let's start with some breathing. First of all, make sure the posture's good. Feet should be pointing in slightly. So again, outside edges parallel. The shins should be vertical. So even when we're sitting down like this, a sense that your sacrum is spreading. And really sitting on the edge of the chair. So it's easier to get that arch in the spine here when you're on a chair than when you're on a cushion. Hands on the belly, over the down chin. So we just want to breathe and feel the movement of the belly. So as you breathe in, your diaphragm is dropping to bring the air into the lungs, and that will make your belly expand. So as I breathe in, my belly expands out. And then as I breathe out, my diaphragm goes up and I use my belly to help it. So I suck the belly in more than it would if I just relaxed. So I'm pulling my belly in now to push the diaphragm up. So what we're trying to do is to get as much air coming out as possible on the out breath. I'm sucking my belly in, and then I just relax it and let it back out again to breathe in. And now, remember a few times we did that exercise with the stick where we rolled it down the spine. So that's important. Trying to undo the compression in the spine where the solar plexus is. So now let's just use the hands to wrap over that point. So one hand at the back here, and then the other hand. So I'm holding my two elbows, but behind my back. Really forcing the spine to arch, to pull forwards at that point where my arms cross. You can meditate like this. Now connecting with your pulse, with your heartbeat. If you can't feel it, take your pulse. Feel the rhythm of it, the speed of it. One, two, three, four. So it's a rhythm that should come very natural to you. You should be able to just count it without feeling your own heartbeat at all, really. So it's normally one a second. And then just a bit more of that breathing we started with. Now feeling that heartbeat. So counting. So as I breathe in, I count on the in-breath. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then breathe out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's pulsing. The muscles are pulsing as they're working. Feel the natural number of heartbeats for a breath. And then you just want to extend it. So you can just add one heartbeat to the number so that your in-breath and out-breath are just a little bit longer. And then you can just slow down your counting just a fraction to try and encourage the heart rate to slow. Do a few standing, sitting, standing, sitting. So first of all, just get into prayer posture and use the hands to sort of push up your sternum. Your back is really arching now. And then just incline forwards and just come up. So I incline forwards and then I come up. But I want the feeling that I'm coming up because something is lifting from the top of my head. So I'm forwards and then something just lifts up. And then when I go down, the feeling that my tail is extending back to try and find the chair. Probing with my tail. And then I come back to vertical. I leave the vertical and I imagine the top of my head is being pulled upwards. And now I need to sit down, but I want the feeling that my tail is extending and probing. My tail is looking for the chair. When I find the chair, I can make sure that I'm not too much on the edge. And then back to vertical. Just feel the slot as it slots into vertical. Something in you can just relax. And then again, so forwards, feel the top of the head extending upwards. Down, my tail is looking for the chair. We want to feel the two ends of the spine, the tail that searches for the chair and the crown of the head that's searching for the ceiling, to feel very similar. So here I lean forwards and my crown just trying to get up there. And that brings me to vertical. And now my tail is not just wanting the chair, but wanting the ground. And then I slot back into vertical. I lean forwards, top of my head is reaching up. Come down, and my tail is searching for the chair. This time, when we go down, hold it. Just as soon as you feel the chair, just hold it without putting your weight on the chair. So feel the chair. And then just rock back. Forwards, and it's as though something comes up the spine. Feel that movement up the spine out of the top of the head, and that brings the body up. And now it just reverses. So something's going down the spine, out of my tail. My tail is extending back, finds the chair, and then the body can relax. I lean forward, something ripples up my spine, comes out at the top of my head, and brings up my body. Now the ripple is going down my spine, out of my tail. That exercise of standing up from the chair, that's what the Alexander technique people use. Very simple. But when we're standing and riding horse, it should feel that you're sitting on the chair, or you're just about to sort of come down. So your tail can go back. But also your head can lift up. Normally when we have our bum stuck in, we're like this, and there's only a certain distance I can go down. So I'm sort of locked in this range. I just want to free that up so that if I needed to, I could go all the way down and sit on the ground without having to make any major adjustment in this area. Feel the tail. Remember how the tail felt when you were sitting down on the chair. It really probes backwards because you're anxious about whether you're going to hit the chair or not. You use the tail naturally. We want the same feeling here. I'm moving around, but my tail is sort of probing the ground all the time. In the same way that your eyes would be roving over the landscape, over the room and everything. Your tail is doing the same thing to the ground. Get the figure of eight going a little bit. So like you're sort of, the tail is trying to loop around the foot. So my tail is going back. There's an action in the tail that sort of brings it round. So the tail needs to be really quite active. That's where we want the motor for our movements to come from. You know, like a dog, you know, you can tell how the dog feels by watching its tail. We'd like a tail that's similarly as expressive of our feelings, our emotional states. Feel that point in the back where you had your arms crossed when they were behind. We want the part of the spine that's beneath that point to be extending, to be traveling backwards. So as I'm working here, my tail, it's not just moving, it's getting longer. There's this feeling that my tail is extending. And then when I pull my bum in a little bit to get the tail to come round, it's not shortening, it's lengthening all the time. The tail is growing all the time. It just changes direction. So here it's sweeping forwards a little bit. Now here it's out again, sweeping forwards. And the part of my spine above that point is extending upwards. So without the bottom part of your spine being free to release downwards, your energy will always be forced when it comes out. So this won't come out clean. Concentrate now on like the arms. So here I'm as though I'm trying to get underneath this foot. I reach out and then I turn this way to bring the hand up. Feel as though you're reaching down to the foot and then coming up over the head, like you're scooping a handful of sand or something and just scattering it over yourself. Still with that feeling of the tail releasing behind you. But you're basting your body. And notice that when you get into the visualization too intently, the tail will tend to seize up. Gradually, as you continue, you just get lower until eventually your hand is actually scraping the ground when it goes down. I want the feeling that I'm inside all these layers of energy. And then just back up. And now just feel that. Still make sure you're folding here, tails trying to search backwards. It's like you're enclosed now in these multiple bubbles, these multiple layers. And now let's try the same thing now on the horizontal. So that was the vertical, getting myself inside all these hoops, if you like. And now the wings, shoulder blade down the arm. Feel this ripply release down the arm. My shoulder blade comes away, and there's a flow down the arm into the fingers. We want the same in the leg. So my hip bone is a bit like the shoulder blade. It comes away from the sacrum, feels like it does, and then a ripple can flow down the leg and into the ground. So it's like you're cocooning yourself in energy. All these multiple veils, these multiple coatings. You know, don't tense up the tail. Feel those two bass rhythms, the rhythm of your heartbeat and the rhythm of your breathing. You don't really want either of those to be affected too much by what you're doing. Right hand reaches out, comes in, And then my left hand reaches out and comes in as though it's surrounding the right. And then the right slips out of that and comes round. So they're overlapping each other all the time. This happens in the form all the time as well. So one arm is catching the other arm, and then that arm escapes and catches the first one. Keeping my tail relaxing back. Now let's just try the ball. It's basically the same thing. If it was bigger, this would be going down to the ground and coming over my head. So you can do the ball quite modestly, but in your mind, I hear I'm getting down to the ground with this hand, and then I'm bringing it up over my head. You want to feel the centrifugal and the centripetal. So there's a sense that my body wants to get bigger and bigger with its movements. So this wants to really expand outwards so that I'm included within it. But my mind is wanting to contract everything into its stillness. Those two forces are in evidence all the time. So what actually happens is just the interplay of those two. Just turning now, but with the arms locked into position. Keep my tail relaxing, keep my hips relaxing. And then I should be able to turn quite a long way. Feel the centrifugal and the centripetal. Something in me is being thrown out by the turn. Something in me is gathering into the center where there's no movement. My body and my energy are being thrown outwards, my flesh, and my mind and my spirit are gathering in the center. So the spirit is ready, but internally gathered. It's gathered about a point. And just allow your eyes to hood. It's almost like you're inducing myopia, like a short-sightedness. So the room becomes a bit of a blur. And it's as though you're looking inside. Feel the posture. Let's just bounce a little bit. Feel the feet really flat on the ground, spread. You're not holding anything back. You're just allowing your body to be sucked down. You're sinking. No fidgeting in the feet. The feet are just happy, just being glued to the ground. Feel what that does to your mind. You need a bigger mind. So all our fidgeting, our noisiness inside is really just a contraction into a much smaller space than we naturally should occupy. Stepping. If you can bang your foot down, all the better. If you can't, just place it and just feel like as soon as it's on the ground, that's where it is. It's stuck. So you're holding nothing back. Just look at it, where do I tense up in order to be gentle with the ground? That's what we want to just give up. I would tense up all around here to make sure that this impact is not coarse. I just want to be able to break out of my own tension, my own constraints. I don't want to be trapped by my own conditioning. So this foot comes up because I'm so attached to the ground with the other one. Now you're on the ground. You've got the ground. Quite quickly. So too quickly for you to sort of give too much attention to the form of what you're doing. So here you can really feel the centrifugal and the centripetal. The centrifugal is throwing my arms out, and simply to try and survive that madness, you will find yourself becoming more sort of determined and more focused in the middle. That's your mind and your spirit. So you're dwelling at the center of this madness, where it's quiet and still. Like when you're inside and you're watching the storm from your window. Keep the tail relaxed. Your tail is actively searching for the ground, because as soon as you do fast movements, you'll tend to come up, especially fast turns. So my tail is sort of tethered to the ground, not letting me take off. Feel that your energy is still swirling, and yet your mind is still peacefully in the midst of that, right in the middle. And now let's just turn, like you're doing roll back. So one hand is turning and dropping a little bit. And then it just changes to the other side. So it's like rolling the ball, but not a complete ball. I want the feeling that my upper arm from my elbow to my shoulder doesn't really move very much. And very much like my arms are locked into the waist. So the slightest turn of the waist translates into the arms. So when I turn in Tai Chi, effectively my body is in two halves, left and right. And one half retreats and the other half advances. So I haven't really moved. My net movement is zero. From the yield, from the retreating side, the attacking side can advance and come out. Yielding is all in the turn. So my body is turning in order to yield an attack, and my body is moving around in order to stay stuck to the other person. So if they advance, then I have to retreat and vice versa. Feel the still center. The sacrum relaxed, the tail extending. And then let's try the same thing, but now with 1 foot forwards. It sort of becomes this exercise, but we want to feel how it becomes that exercise. So the arm that is yielding tends to try and grab what it's connecting to. So this side of my body, when it yields, it catches, it hooks into the other person's energy, but also hooking into the ground. So as I turn here, I will tend to naturally be pulled a little bit more into the front foot. And then when I turn here to yield with the right side of my body, it'll naturally hook me towards the right foot. We just want to feel it. It's as though the side of your body that's yielding is actually contracting. Everything's sucking in that side, which will glue you to the ground. And also, hopefully, glue you to the other person. Remember, yielding is not simply getting out of the way of the other person. Yielding is sticking to the other person and changing their course, affecting them. Feel the mind, the still mind at the center of this circle. You're still shrouded in all of these layers of energy from your wings and also from the hood over your head. So it's like you're cowering beneath this hood. So my flesh is flung outwards, but my mind and spirit gather about the center. Now let's try the other side, but this time do the normal exercise, just going backwards and forwards, but feel that what we've just been doing. So my mind is still doing what we were doing before with the circles, but now the spirit is just wanting to spark out from the circle every now and then. My mind staying with the circle that enables my spirit to leave the circle. So I'm turning away with my mind from the vector that flies off this circle tangentially. If my mind gets too involved with my spirit, then I'll ruin it. David and Goliath, the slingshot. So gathering all of that centrifugal energy and then just releasing it. The mind tells him when to release, but once it's released, that projectile is on its own. It's gone. My mind here. Place the hands on the Danshan maybe. Feel the tail hanging down, trying to venture backwards. Feel that lightness in the top of the head. A little bit of life that's just trying to go upwards to the sky. Let's just straighten the legs. Imagine someone puts their hands here. They're feeling it. So what we want to do is feel how our sinking is not simply a bending of the knees, but everything is getting sucked down into the ground. So now just bend the knees gently and just imagine that that hand that's touching you here gets sucked down through you and into the feet. And if I hold this, it's a never-ending process. There's a drain through my body into my feet from every part of my body. Wherever I'm touched, that person, if they're sensitive, will feel as though they're being drawn down through the body. So to maintain that, this has to remain very open. As soon as we're still, we tend to take that as an opportunity to start thinking to ourselves. To think to yourself requires this whole area to seize up. So by keeping this area open, I'm sinking. And my mind is becoming quiet in the correct way. It's not becoming a forced quietness or a stupor. There's just this endless flow through my body, which you can think of as gravity in its energetic aspect, or it's just really just, it's your receptivity, if you like, your willingness to simply be a channel between the world and the ground. And of course, if there's this flow going on, then there must also be the other flow coming the other way. Otherwise, I would be physically moving downwards. So you can just try and find that, what is it that's coming up my body, and just allowing this movement to come out so lightly and naturally, and then keeping those two things going. They're both so different from each other, so you tend to have to sort of jump between them. And then it's just the play of those two energies that is life, really. It's just, that's where all of your movement should come from. It's not from design or desire or opinion up here. It's just from the interaction of the downward and the upward. And then let's just bring it up into attention. And now just straightening the legs as much as you dare without snapping from the ground, keeping this feeling that wherever you're touched, you can drain that down through your body, through the soles of the feet and into the ground. Feel those two forces from the turning, so the centrifugal, the centripetal. They're always there, even when you're not turning, because our mind is always wanting to turn. This is the yielding mind. Yielding comes from turning. So there's part of my mind that's just, it's on this, like a merry-go-round. So it's always willing just to give way, and then something can come out of that. And so I'm having to be still in the middle. Otherwise, it can't turn and it can't fling outwards. So remember, in the classics, the spine is the axle, the waist is the wheel, and the mind is the oil, the grease. So it's my still mind at the center, at the hub of the wheel that enables this freedom to turn. And then whichever way you turn is simply a response to what's around you. It's not a decision you've had to make.